All right, we're recording. Hello, we're nerds. It's Erin and Maisie again. We are back with the second installment in our new Writing a Book with Us project, in which we are teaming up and co-authoring a book together. Just to review a little bit, the book is an adult horror or like dark fantasy.
Horror is good with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Adult horror. Yeah.
There's like a spooky little cult, a lighthouse, big void vibes. And there are two main characters, enemies to lovers. One of them is a monster girl. And yeah, it's great fun. So I'm sure we'll go over all the notes we took last time. In the last video, we mentioned that we're probably going to post these in April for Camp Nano. But then we realized, yeah, that's like now. And so we decided we wanted a little more time to plot. Erin just got back from vacation. Yeah. So we are super excited to dive in. At the time of recording, it is April 11th, 2022. And so we are aiming to start posting some of these brainstorming videos in June. That way, come July, we can all be like drafting a book together.
Yep, nanoing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything? Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. Okay. I'm just like, you're much more prepared and organized. And I literally was telling Maisie before that this is the chaos that I just took notes and pulled them out of my notebook. You know what I should do before we start is I have my vast, can you see that from here? Yes, you can. This is all empty notebooks. Hold on. This is too like sunshiny for our book, isn't it? I feel like.
It is pretty.
It's pretty, but I need something more murdery. What's this one? No, that's half used. Stop it. It's all sliding off. I know I have new ones. Oh, here. Ooh, that's a good one.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's use this one. That's a nice buttery leather cover. Could be somebody's skin. I don't know. You never know.
Could be. There's no way to know.
I bought it at Indigo, so probably not.
Probably skin. The goal of like this whole project is just that it sounded really fun. And 2022, we are trying to just have fun with writing because
exactly
a lot of things are out of our control in publishing, but having a good time doesn't have to be. So
exactly
having fun.
Yeah. And I definitely will need to go over the notes that we took. Let's see. I sent myself a thingy that I'm going to now send you if I can find it. It is basically Peggy's Cove in Nova Scotia is a small, it's kind of sunshiny, but if you just had like a negative picture, like in black and white or something, it could really easily be spooky. And there's like a stretched out arm seashore thing with like a lighthouse on the end. Okay. And it just looks kind of like what I'm picturing in my head.
Yeah.
Peggy's Cove.
I'm looking at it on Google Maps right now.
Yeah, it's a fishing town too. So
yeah.
I'm just picturing something that's like, I don't know about you, but like a little ramshackle village. Where are we? Oh yeah, here we go. So I don't know how remote you want it to be, but this is kind of what I'm picturing when I think about it.
Okay. I love it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm open to it being a bigger town, a smaller town, whatever you want to do, but in my head, this is kind of
sounds great. I think isolation is a great
trope
in horror.
Yeah, exactly.
No one can get to you if you need help. It's hard to get out, so you can't just run away.
Exactly. I was I used to go to Hornby fairly regularly, which is like a teeny little island off the island I live on, and there's a ferry that only comes like I think it's a few times a day, and then after 7 you're just like out of luck. And I really like that kind of idea of isolation, particularly like I can't remember who I was talking to, but they're like, oh yeah, the ferry only comes every 3 days, something like that, where I'm like, that's ominous to me. That's
Yeah,
ominous. Like,
or even
so,
like
yeah.
if the ferry comes every 3 days and like if you have a boat, you could go, but like your character doesn't have a boat.
Exactly. Or maybe like if it gets really stormy, you could risk it if you wanted to, if it's a big emergency, but you're probably not going to.
Exactly. Oh, and yeah, if you're just joining us on this one, we're like spoiling everything. We are fully plotting this book on camera, like doing it all for everyone to see, so that like, I don't know, it's just a fun peek into the creative process. We were thinking it'd be fun to share with you all how we do all of this.
Yeah, and we'll probably as we draft, Megan, Maisie and I were talking about how we
if you're joining us late, my real name is Megan and Maisie Patrick is my pen name.
I'm gonna
my mom calls me.
Start referring to you as Maisie though while we are working on this project. So
it's fine either way.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier, kind of the videos we would do as we are actually drafting, which will probably be like check-in videos. Since Maisie and I are both like big plotters, we'll have an outline, but we'll probably, I don't know about you, but like I very much change as I go along, like, oh, the character's gonna do this. Yeah. So I think check-ins is a good idea, specifically in case you're dealing with other person's character, being like, hey, I'm gonna shave her head. I don't know.
I'm going to wound her.
I'm going to wound
emotionally
her.
And physically.
Yeah. Is it okay if I amputate an arm?
Oh, I was thinking last week, I can't remember if I made this like joke on the live or we talked a little bit after we went off of recording. But we talked about this idea of like my character being creepy. She's a void girl. And I made like the joke about like your character thinking it's a sleep paralysis demon and thinking that her sleep paralysis demon is kind of sexy.
Yeah.
The next day when I got on TikTok, I saw someone making that joke. Like, oh, my sleep paralysis demon is hot. Gonna seduce my sleep paralysis demon. I was like, nothing is unique.
I literally told someone about that TikTok the other day with like the delivery and everything, how she comes on screen and goes, I've been seeing someone new.
Oh yeah.
It is a sleep paralysis demon.
They're like,
we are sleeping together. Yeah. I was like, that's so good.
And I will never have a unique idea of it.
I know, it's true.
Infuriating. They are much more famous than me, so anyone who sees me do this now will be like, oh yeah, that one TikToker, they came up with that idea. Not Maisie, independently from them.
I feel like though, if anyone would try to come at you and be like, you clearly, I'm like, have you ever heard of a succubus? Like, that's literally what that is, but okay. So yeah, I took a bunch of crazy scribbled notes, but the gist of it is, this is not helpful. This is a grocery list.
The gist of it is groceries.
The gist of it is eggs, milk. No, that's also not the note. I'm sorry. There's so many things on my desk that are not related. Okay, yeah, 2 POVs switching between the girls. I have Maisie equals bug lady.
She likes bugs.
She likes bugs. Dark, enemies to lovers, you abandoned me vibes. Both terrible and morally gray. One pulled more to the bad side in an isolated town. Yeah, we wanted to do they're both kind of pulling each other under thing. And like a power, not imbalance, but like a switching. And I also really, because like I'm a huge enemies to lovers fan, but I know the one thing people complain about the most is like when they're not true enemies to lovers. And it's like, oh, you know, back in 6th grade, I stubbed my toe and you didn't say, are you okay? Like, that's not an enemy. You're mildly annoyed at each other. And I've had that feedback from Witches of Ash and Ruin too. And so now I'm like going forward, I'm determined. I'm like, well, they're just going to hate each other. Like, they're going to want to murder each other.
You're going to be like, how will they ever be in the same room together?
You asked for this, people.
I have so, the monster you've created.
Yeah. This is your fault, people. So I think I love the you abandoned me vibe for sure. And then I think I want to add something as well that explains the massive animosity and maybe something to do with the cult. Because like, she has massive baggage when it comes to the cult. So and she comes back and her enemy is like sort of, did we say if she was a prophet or a leader, or can't remember what we
I think
decided?
we're picturing kind of like a living saint, sort of like, the mascot of the cult.
Yeah. So maybe the Void Girl, when they were younger, did something in relation to the cult that felt like a major betrayal. I don't know if she maybe like she was breaking one of the rules, Writer Girl was breaking one of the rules maybe, and Void Girl told on her, which resulted in like a fallout with her parents or something, like something big like that. Right. Like a betrayal. And then I think because Void Girl has the strong feelings of like, you abandoned me in this town. So maybe she did something in retaliation.
What if there's like, I'm thinking about, the classic trope of like, we were gonna leave a place together, but one person doesn't show up.
Yeah.
Like, what if it was something like that, where like they were gonna leave together, but my character didn't show up, but it was like something was happening. And so she's like, you didn't come looking for me. You just assumed I wasn't coming and left. And so your character would be like, you didn't come.
Yeah.
And then like, but my character would need to have some sort of like agency in it. Like if your character found out she was White Girl and probably could have gotten out of like, something like that, where there's like multiple layers to it.
Yeah. Layers to the animosity. Like, if there was like a major betrayal, they have a fight the night before, they're like, we're going to get away together type of thing. Oh, like maybe what if they both initially want to get out of the cult and they're like, we're going to run away together. We're going to go to the mainland. And then the cult like catches the other girl, the Void Girl, and she rats out her friend, something like that, which is also why she couldn't meet her. And then the other girl would leave without her. And also because maybe she would leave without her if the Void Girl was having doubts, or she felt like the Void Girl was like the weaker one initially. Like, oh, she's still sort of half attached to the cult. Like she didn't show up because she's not coming, but really she was like locked in a room and the cult was like interrogating her or something. And she'd be like, why didn't you come for me? I told you I was going to meet you, type of thing.
Yeah.
And then but maybe she does tell Writer Girl's parents something like really damaging when she is locked in that room in that situation. And then from that, on the mainland, Writer Girl learns this and is like, well, it's a good thing you didn't come with me because you betrayed me, type of thing. You know, that has layers to it, like they both feel like they were wronged.
I want to play with this a little more. I've been thinking a lot about my character and like kind of like the outsiderness of each character. And I've been thinking that in the present day, I want my character to be like very involved. Like that's the draw of a cult, right? It's the community that you get.
Exactly.
And so I want her to be like very much belonging in it, like having lots of friends, like having these complicated relationship dynamics, so that it is a weird like, oh, you kind of want to bring it down, but you also like all these people. Like, weird twisted relationship with it.
And she would, particularly if what has happened was that, you know how in conversion therapy, which is horrible on its own, they try to brainwash you. Like, what if there was some kind of thing, not conversion therapy, because the cult is weirdly open to gay people, but like if there was,
we're not messing. I think we talked about that in the after recording maybe, but we decided that homophobic cults are not what we want to be writing. So it's a weird utopian cult.
It's also boring.
I
mean, no shade to anyone that is writing a homophobic cult, because it's realistic, but we also just don't want to deal with that right now.
This is a fun project, and we don't want to write people
lighthearted
who hate our identities. So
exactly. We would rather write other versions of murderous cults.
Yeah.
More fun.
Yeah, we just want to attack the foundations upon which we were brought up.
I would just like to deal with one trauma at a time, please.
Yeah, one thing at a
time. Yeah, okay. So I think it's very much a kind of, yeah, like you said, it's a twisted attachment where it feels like a bit of Stockholm syndrome and brainwashing that, you know, once her friend has left this, I think we should make them, you know, they were like BFFs, like really, really, really close. Yeah. And potentially, like what's that?
Like, you know how when you're like really young and maybe aren't aware of your queerness and you tend to have like really intense friendships,
you're like, I just like her so much. This is
just my ride or die best friend.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I really like that idea. Yeah. And I think as you get older too, if you do start to realize that wasn't just those weren't just friendship feelings. And as they get older, I think especially if you hated that person later, that would make things even more bitter. I think. Sure. It was like, you know, I had these deep, deep feelings for her that I hadn't even realized at the time. And then she turned around and did this. Mm-hmm. So yeah, because that's just so many layers that complicates things, and like the tangle of emotions involved in that would be intense. Yeah.
Do you have any name ideas for your character yet?
No. Do you?
I want my character.
Did you assemble them? I haven't even written anything down yet.
I don't have any ideas for your character's name. I came up with mine. I think
what is it?
Her name is going to be Eden St. Clair. And I also was thinking, we talked about like, what is the cult gonna call her? And so I was Googling like occupation names for lighthouse keeper, and it's just lighthouse keeper or light keeper. Light keeper is a good one.
That's so perfect.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Which is hilarious because she's a freaking void.
Exactly.
Oh, delicious.
Like, I know something you don't.
Oh, that's so good. I also really love the name Eden because it is creepy and biblical.
Yeah.
My brain goes straight to Lilith, but that's maybe not a good idea. I guess we still need to sort of figure out what kind of cult we want them to be as far as like biblical shit and how and what they're making up, because you know the fringes always have some absolutely wild stuff going on, right? Like they've adjusted the Bible, they've made their own pamphlets, whatever. So this part could be fun.
Yeah, I think we talked a little bit about like general Old Testament view of God.
Yes, we did. I'm just looking at this.
And this idea of like your own translation of like the Bible, which is part of like, I'm trying to decide like how much of my life I want to put on a live chat, but like
whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah, I should have thought of that beforehand, but it is a part of some religions that I know a lot about, where like it's maybe cult adjacent, and the founder of said religion might be like, hey, you know what? I want to like pen some of my own interpretations of these things and now say that they're part of the Bible, or even just like different translations of the Bible. You know, you've got like King James version, whatever. There's one with like new in the title of it.
Yeah, I think the King James dude literally added his own spin on things too, right?
Oh, for sure. So each like different translation.
Exactly. Thing. Like I want to get divorced, so I'm going to say this dude in the Bible said it was cool.
Divorce is chill.
Divorce is fine. So
this cult is fine with gay people, so they cut out that one single verse that people interpret.
They cut that out, and they you know, they probably did a lot more cutting and what do you think of the name Lilith? Because we really go on and on about the cult. I think is heavily involved in like the idea of demons, and Lilith was like, what is Lilith, a mother of Satan or something? She
was Adam's first wife, right?
Yes,
according to myth.
but then
and
she
wouldn't
also,
listen to him.
yeah,
Pulling up the wiki.
but she was also affiliated with like demons or something. Mother of demons.
I don't remember. She's not part of the pantheon that I'm familiar with.
She's not either for me. I just know from watching Supernatural stuff. Yeah, because I want to kind of avoid a name like, I don't know.
It would have to be a name that like her parents would have.
Yeah, so it would have been something that was very biblical. And she probably would have, if it was something like Ruth, which is my middle name, holla, I hate it, it's terrible. She probably would have changed it, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I want to do something very biblical. I'm kind of just write the name Lilith down and see what we think later. Because yeah, with the name Eden, I really like, it brings to mind the garden. Yeah, it brings to mind the garden, the snake, you know, the serpent. And with Lilith being, I wonder it. No, I already have I just, you know, I just finished up In a Forest Dark and Deep, the book I had been working on, and her name is Evie. So I was just about to be like, what about Eve? And then
I thought about Eve too, and that's the name of one of the like already dead characters in my vampire book.
Yeah.
She's like dead before the book starts, but she's referenced a lot. So it's like,
yeah.
Put that there.
I also wonder if Eden and Eve is too similar.
It's like Adam and Eve. Lesbians.
Oh God. Yeah, I'll keep thinking about it.
Yeah.
But if we're going with like a Garden of Eden, you know, thing, I kind of want to swing that way.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Name Lilith. But yeah, we'll have to figure out, actually, the more we figure out about how they've twisted scripture and what they're doing in their cult, like we believe these crazy things, then I'll be able to pull something from that for a name.
Yeah.
Okay, what else?
In other character brainstorming things, in our ideas document, it's in our vibes document. I have a link to a TikTok that is what's the singer's name? It's also Maisie, and so I keep wanting to say Patrick, which is it's me. That's me. Maisie Peters. That's why I got it. It's a TikTok that's her and this guy who has duetted it, and they're singing this like song about like a twisted relationship, and I want there to be a platonic relationship like that song in that TikTok that I have linked to, because he's like begging her to like stop doing destructive things, and she's like, yeah, no, I don't think so. And so I like the idea of Eden having like a very like soft-hearted, just wants to do what's right boy best friend. Because we've got a lot of a soft boy. Yeah. We've got a lot of girl characters, I think, right now.
Would you have him in the cult as well? I mean,
I think
sort of everybody's in the cult, I think, in town.
Yeah, and I think looking at like, you know, if it is a semi-utopian cult, like they're probably doing good things in addition to bad things. And so having people across the spectrum of like, oh, well, you know, I was raised in it, so maybe I don't look too closely at the bad things, or I care mostly about the good things that they're doing. I like, you know, like that spectrum.
I really like the idea of having the cult seem on the face to be something like benevolent. Having it be I really like that, because, you know, so many of the other like Heaven's Gate cult and stuff, like that's so obviously malicious, like immediately obvious that it's bad stuff. Because a lot of the time it feels like the cult leader is like a dead giveaway. It's like, oh, he's now said a prophecy from God is that he can have all the underage women he wants or whatever.
Yeah,
it's
always like you're cartoonishly evil at that point.
Exactly. Like grow a mustache.
You're a real
twirling
person,
it.
really?
Yeah, exactly.
I believe you.
Yeah. So I really like the idea of it being more of a subtle thing. Particularly because like the writer girl would be so frustrated because it does to everyone else it looks benevolent.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was also thinking what did we say for why she's coming back? I know she's writing a book,
Eden
but I think
brings her there somehow.
Oh yes, yeah, because I like that, but I think maybe I'm thinking about what would pressure her enough to come back, because like in most cases it's like nothing is going to force you back into that. But I'm wondering if she has like a really big hit for the first book she writes about this cult. Like she writes her unofficial life story, she's on like Oprah and shit, and it's like huge, and everything else she tries to write after that the publisher turns it down or doesn't want it or it flops or whatever. So she's got this like
it's like my rom-com.
But I'm just thinking like that would probably be enough pressure if you had that contract and every time you try to sit down and write something you can't do it and your book is due and you're going to have to give back $1 million or whatever.
And maybe she left out details of Eden in the first book and she's like, well, that's a gold mine right there. Like, if I was to include her in it, that would be a gold mine and I need to see what she's doing right now.
And this is very Bly Manor, or Bly Manor, what's the other one? Hill House. This is very Hill House, but I feel like what if she did mine a little bit of like the actual cult and actually name people kind of, or that it was like that's one of the reasons that Eden was so pissed at her maybe and felt so betrayed, maybe
like if she found a draft or something,
or even if Eden is in the first book and she tells the story of how they were parted and how she accidentally left Eden behind and how Eden betrayed her, blah blah blah, but under different names and calls it fiction or whatever, or like what is it, semi autobiography type of thing, right? The stuff Oprah loves or whatever. So what if she did conclude Eden and now everyone's like, we need a sequel, and she's like, I don't have a sequel. I don't have a sequel, right? But she signed a contract for a sequel. She has to go back to figure out what happened after that. What happened after I left? What's Eden up to?
Yeah.
Right. So that kind of puts Eden square in her path.
Yeah.
But Eden would still have agency because she's also a kind of, if we make her responsible for this somehow. I don't know how we would do that. She has ties in the publishing world.
I mean, she's the Void. She can do anything she wants.
She swallows the editor and replaces them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she works some kind of dark magic to make sure that writer girl needs to come back for a book 2 and I like the idea that she acts really choked about it. Yeah. She's you're here again to mine my life for your inspiration. Like, yeah, how dare you?
Yeah.
I like the idea too of her like recording Eve maybe, or Eden, sorry. God, this is gonna be an issue. Recording Eden maybe, like without, because like we kind of want her to be shady, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think both of them.
Yeah, both of them are kind of shady and both of them don't really care who they hurt. And I like the idea of writer girl, maybe she has a tape recorder, even though you're not allowed. She's recording everything Eden says. She's like taking notes. And I don't know, I think we could really play with that. We could play with like maybe the tape recorder like shorting out or recording something creepy, or like there's lots of things to play with there.
Yeah.
I need to call her something for now because I can't keep writing writer girl.
I'm just putting brackets.
That's a good idea. Maybe she calls herself Lily and her name is actually Lilith.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Which would be like in the regular world, someone would be like, oh, your name's Lilith. Haha, that's goth of you or whatever. But like there it would be like, no one's gonna ever even look at you in a scenario where people probably aren't wanting to interact with her anyway. If her book was like a sensation.
Mm-hmm.
Hence even more reason for her to need to be like recording things since no one's gonna want to talk to her.
Exactly.
Except maybe my character's mom, who we talked about in the first one a bit.
What did we say about your character's mom again?
So there was an offering in front of the lighthouse to get rid of like a super bad mist or like something was messing with the island really badly, and so they made an
storms or something.
God.
I think we said, right?
Yeah. So they made a living offering to God, thinking that like the baby Eden was gonna die. But the fog cleared and she like wasn't dead, but her mom like kind of goes mad as a result of it, and like she seems particularly unhinged, but it's also like, is she lying?
She's
no,
the only one that knows anything.
Yeah. Like she knows that whatever happened like messed with her kid.
I like the idea too that like maybe Lily grew up with Eden's mom and knew that she was like slightly off already. Like, it's one of those things where it's like the character was mentally ill to begin with, and now people write them off, even though they're telling the truth the whole time. So she'd be like, oh yeah, you know, Eden's mom always struggled with mental illness. And when the cult did this, she like broke. And that would be in the story too that she wrote, the first one, which again, unforgivable for her to write that about Eden's mom. So like
yeah. And I think there's like this tendency anyway, just like in general culture, to be like when a parent is particularly reactive to something that happened to their child, be like, oh well, you can't be
objective.
Objective because it's your kid, so obviously you are looking for things to be, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking through the notes here. We talked about the cult, like finding out she's protecting her all along type of thing. Then they backstab her because she's not one of them. Okay, I'm just going through all this. Breaks the prayer beads when they betray her. Oh, the witching hour. Yeah, we were gonna do basically the cult's all about demons. Okay, so that would be kind of the base of their beliefs. Cult is all about demons.
Yeah, because the belief was we did this sacrifice and like God took care of our problem, but other things were able to get through like the doorway now. And so now we have to keep an eye out for these demons.
Do we want to do the traditional like, oh, the devil sent his demons? Do they believe in the actual Christian devil of the Bible type thing?
Yeah,
or was that?
I said, yeah, I don't know.
It could be the same as like the God figure they believe in, that they just like add to it and make their own devil,
Yeah.
I like the idea that they would make him out to be, because they're like, if we want them to be actually, because we had said like a brimfire and hellfire type of preacher, but if they're a benevolent cult, that's not necessarily what they would be.
Yeah, I think it would be like the flip side of like a you're all going to hell is like a you're all in danger and I'm the only one who can keep you safe. Like
I feel like it would be less about hellfire and brimstone and more about like constant vigilance type of thing. Like we're at war with demons and God will protect us, but he tells us to do these things to keep ourselves safe,
I have a note too somewhere about miracles. And how they believe in like Eden being like their first miracle, and since then like other miracles happen when these like demons get through. to terrorize people, but sometimes the miracles are faked by the cult leaders.
Mm-hmm. Are we talking miracles as in like they're negative miracles, like demons and stuff?
I think a little bit of both. So like they were protected from that thing, like the mist or whatever, the storms.
Right.
But like now demons get through, and then like, oh, like the demons are coming, paint blood on the door, like that kind of like, oh, it was a miracle, we were preserved. Like that
Right.
sort of thing.
Yeah. Blood on doorways. I think I took that note the other day, but we'll do it again. Yeah, I love the blood on doorway things. I want to do more creepy stuff like that. I'd love to have like a whole set of rules that the cult has. It's like, these are the only things that keep you safe. So that the town is kind of like on edge. I'd also love to do, because I think it ramps the tension up really nicely, like a certain night. You know, like All Hallows Eve, where it's like, oh, the veil is thin or whatever, like so I don't know what night it would be or what religious significance it would have, but it would be good to have some kind of like, this date or this night of the year is when we have to be extra careful or something like that, you know?
Yeah. In our last chat, we talked a bit about like night is never safe.
Oh yeah, that's good.
But we could have it be like she arrives, like she purposely comes on the week that like it's particularly bad, like they particularly
so maybe because there's inevitably going to be during the winter longer nights, longer darker nights, so maybe the whole winter maybe is like during the time just before winter, that tension and fear could really ramp up and be like, oh, you know, do you have the blood to paint your doors? Do you have like your scriptures out? Do you like batten the hatches pretty much? I like that. Prepare for winter months.
And maybe your character is like planning to arrive before and leave shortly into the winter or something, so she's not there for all the unhinged stuff, but then like
or maybe
she gets
wants
stuck
to
there for a while longer.
Maybe she wants to be there for some of the unhinged stuff, particularly like, I'm trying to figure out, I think it would be good to make her like on Instagram and on Twitter and being like, you wanted it, fine, here you go, Oprah, I'm going to take pictures of this place. Here's the blood on the doorway, #gross, you know, stuff like that. And probably no one in town would have Instagram or phones, maybe even depending on like what type of culture in the town is.
They would have to have some, otherwise they wouldn't have internet.
Yes,
so your character couldn't do any of it.
That's true. I'm thinking that there's a more modern motel or something that she goes to.
We did talk about she was going to sleep at the motel and it gets burnt down, and so she has to go back to her parents.
Right.
We don't have to keep doing that. Nothing's set in stone.
But I kind of love that idea though. So maybe there's a coffee shop. Like there's one little coffee shop that's like hipper than everywhere else. And the lady is like outside the cult, but cult adjacent. And they're like, oh, she's the rebel or whatever. We
can definitely do that. What if you also get good reception at the top of the lighthouse because you're up really high? And so like if something were to happen to the coffee shop, her only choice for uploading something would be where the cult meets.
Oh my God, that's good. Yeah, what if she has to like sign a contract or something? That would be like, oh, you have to get it into your editor by 5 or whatever. And then the coffee shop, something happens, it's closed. And she's like, shit, I have to go into the lighthouse to sign this with my laptop.
Like really, Eden has done something to shut down the coffee shop.
Yes, of course. She's like, set it on fire? Sure. I like that a lot.
I also am fascinated with the role that increasing levels of internet presence has on horror.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Especially in like isolation themes. It's like, oh, well, we can't make a phone call. And so it's like, oh, well, what if you can, but it doesn't matter. Like,
yeah.
Like it's almost scarier if you can make calls, but it doesn't matter. No one can get to you.
Exactly. or, you know, they've played, you know, I've seen horror movies that play with like the person who answers the phone isn't helpful.
Yeah.
They think you're lying, or maybe, you know, the call cuts out before you can, you know, say something. Or but you know, even just from traveling, I'm like, my Wi-Fi doesn't work like half the time, you know, like half the time the call drops, and I'm like, hopefully didn't need a taxi, because yeah, so like it's not that unrealistic for a horror movie character to not be able to call, particularly on an isolated island in the middle of like a
For
fishing
sure.
village. Yeah.
Yeah, we had talked about her being in therapy and having virtual therapy over spotty Wi-Fi.
Oh yes, that's good too. Virtual therapy. And also she'd have to be having this virtual therapy in her parents' house and being like, I'm gonna lock myself in the closet. That would be so frustrating. I'm already frustrated for her.
She's like, back here again.
Yeah. In the closet. But okay. Parents' house. Spotty Wi-Fi. I really, actually, now I have this scene in my head of her just hiding in the closet after therapy is over, or after it cut out or something, and just like sadly laughing to herself that she's back in the closet at her parents' house. Like, this is ridiculous. It's going in my author's note or something.
So as far as personalities go, because I think personalities are something that'll be important to have really nailed down, so that we can at least like semi have the voices of each other's characters in mind when we're writing them. It'll be a little bit before they're on page together, I guess, but
yeah. What are you
like
thinking? Yeah, what are you thinking for Eden? You sound like you have her more fleshed out than I have.
I'm kind of imagining like in public, like so mild-mannered as to be frustrating.
I see. Like sunshiny type of thing, or
yeah, like a suppressed sunshine, like very optimistic, very like
soft-spoken.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like if she were to wander up on Lily in front of the burned down motel, she'd be like, oh wow, I'm so sad, that's a really bad thing that happened to you, is there anything I can do to help? Like, do you need some food? I have some extra food at my house.
It's so funny because I was literally about to say I am picturing Lily as like the polar opposite, very blunt and kind of like, yes, I was literally about to say sardonic, flat. I'm picturing like almost like a tone of like Audrey Plaza type of tones, not to the level
I can channel that. Oh yeah, like a non-persona level of
yeah, exactly. So they're polar opposite, and Lily would be very much like, Eden, quit your bullshit. Like
please be real for 1 second.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I know you're not this person. Particularly if Eden wasn't really like that.
Yeah.
When they were friends before, because they would know each other, right?
Yeah. I picture her inside being much more like feral.
Yes.
Like still sunshiny, but like, isn't this cool? I can destroy things. Isn't this so fun? Do you want me to kill them? Because I could.
I love that.
Like Lily would be like, oh, do you want me to like kill them? And you'd be like, oh, well, she obviously doesn't mean it. But Eden would be like, do you want me to kill them? Because I'm already picturing it.
Like,
I've already gotten started.
Yeah.
On the inside.
I like that idea of that contrast for them, particularly at the beginning with Eden being like, you know, from an outsider perspective, having Lily be like, she's the clear asshole here, right? She's blunt, she's rude, she doesn't care who she hurts with her. She's at this point, she's like, fuck all of you.
Yeah.
I'm getting my contract. I'm getting my money. I'm using you to get all of that. And I don't care who I hurt because you all suck and you hurt me. And Eden being like this soft-spoken saint girl.
Basically. I'm so sorry if it seems like we hurt you.
Yeah, exactly.
Surely that wasn't our intention.
And also
like we did it.
And also Lily initially being really like blunt with Eden too, and being like, what the fuck did they do to you type of thing. Like, God, this is terrifying. You know,
have you listened to the song 7 by Taylor Swift? I think I did. I referenced this last time.
I think you sent it in one of the
like,
files or something one. So yeah, I did. Yeah,
that idea of like I think the song references like, I used to scream ferociously anytime I wanted, and it's like from the present day looking back on like that like, ability to just scream and be weird and loud and whatever you want when you're younger. Like, I feel very much that is like an Eden type of thing.
Yeah, awesome. I can kind of, do you have, because I picture Lily looking a little bit like Audrey Plaza too, not to be a dead horse, but like the blunt cut hair, like white pale skin, because she's a writer. Doesn't like going outside. I picture her as like darker features, white skin, and then very like a very downstated dresser, like sweaters and stuff, and doesn't necessarily want to be seen, I think, which I feel like is a writer trait, but then also is a person who just got out of a cult trait too, like big oversized writer sweaters and stuff. So what are you picturing Eden like as far as features, dressing style type of?
You know, in the Raven Boys, how Adam is described as being like sepia toned, like he's kind of tan, like kind of sandy blonde, light brunette hair, like that's kind of what I picture her being. Sandy blonde, so like white, but like does tan some, like it's a fishing town, she's
like golden kind of
okay. And then, you know, like the kind of darker blonde hair that like lightens up in the summer because she's outside a lot.
She's kind of like white gold, goldish.
I think brown eyes. And as far as like dress goes, I think her clothes are probably pretty plain. But she's not in like not in like an I'm trying not to be seen way, but in like a I'm understated kind of way.
Understated clothes. Did we talk about if the cult is going to be like modesty and stuff, or I don't know. So. Yeah, because like
we talked about, I think maybe after we stopped recording, about this idea of like there are probably some standards but that are the same regardless of gender.
Okay.
Like, so no matter what your gender is, they expect you to dress a certain way or be covered a certain amount or something.
I wonder if, because I don't know, it's funny because you know exactly what I'm talking about, I'm sure, where I have this feeling that's like, I want to mine the depths of the crap I went through as a kid and then young adult stuff. Because there's so much there and it's fascinating to dip into it.
Well, I have the trauma if I can't capitalize on it.
But also it makes me deeply tired to think about diving back into like modesty culture. So I'm thinking, I'm thinking maybe they have a style of dress or some form of dress that less has to do with modesty and more has to do with protecting yourself from demons.
We talked about those necklaces.
Yeah, we talked about not crucifixes, prayer beads.
Yeah.
So that could be a part of it. Prayer beads, like you'd never go anywhere without them. And Eden has them under her clothes because It's like a teeth necklace or something. I can't remember.
She
what we
actually
said.
can't wear them is the
Yeah,
thing.
'cause
And so she
they
keeps
would
a
burn
necklace
her
under
or
her
something.
clothes. So
Okay.
people think it's her prayer beads.
Yeah, it's just like somebody's tooth on the end or something. Maybe she has, because she's big into bugs. So maybe she has like a frozen mosquito or a frozen like butterfly or moth or something on the end of her necklace. Prayer beads, and then I kind of like the idea of them, not a uniform, but something that she could, Lily could just take off and symbolically burn type of thing, something like that.
It could be like on Sundays, they all wear roughly the same thing or something.
Or maybe a color, like maybe they all wear white. Something creepy. Actually, that would be pretty creepy too. If we have a scene where they're like all standing, staring in like the gloom of like pre-twilight and just all of them wearing white.
Oh yeah, that's exactly my trauma. I love that.
Okay, so how about on the day of the services, they all wear like kind of white flowy stuff.
Yeah.
And that could be strongly like we wear white to keep darkness away because she's the light bringer and stuff. So I'll wear white on service days.
Yeah. And my inclination is for most things, like I don't want them to be too deep into the like good, dark, bad. Like
yeah.
Like I don't want them to be so into it that now they're veering towards sharp right into racism land.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I want to concentrate most heavily on the fear of like actual demons. So dark and light will no doubt be used as a metaphor by the cult members because like it's Christianese speak. Like that gets used a lot is for metaphors. Yeah, exactly. Don't hide your light under a bushel or whatever crap. But yeah, I want to focus heavily on everything they do is motivated by the demons that come out at night that they have to protect against. Which actually brings me to, because I started watching, you weren't there for the chat on Sunday, but I was complaining to the other WordNerds because I had downloaded that the Block Island Sound movie because I wanted to watch it. I wanted to watch it while I was in Cuba, but I didn't realize that Netflix, like if you don't watch something soon enough, it just like deletes it. So I like went to watch it halfway through the week and was like, cool, great, it's not there. So I started watching it today, and one of the things it made me think of is like, because right away you get introduced the idea that fish are dying and then birds are dying. Something's killing fish and birds. And one of the first scenes is that classic. And we're avoiding that because it is classic. We'd like to go a different direction.
Same
but one of the similar vibe, like small creepy town stuff is happening. It's spooky. One of the first scenes is just like a bird running into his car at night, and it's super creepy, and they're both out on the road and in this tiny village, and they're trying to figure out, why did a bird fly into my windshield? It looks like it was already dead. It dropped out of the sky. And so that made me think, like, if we had that opening scene of like, here's a spooky thing that's happening, Lily's freaked out, but to the other town folk, it just means that night is coming. What would that be? What's our bird falling out of the sky? So I've been thinking about that. So we've got the like blood over the doorways to keep something out. But I'm wondering what the physical manifestations of our demons, so to speak, are going to be. If we don't want them to be, because we had storms, that was something that was an issue.
Yeah.
I kind of want it to be, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say we could just have like the fog rolls in, so the foghorn starts up.
Ooh, I like that. Do lighthouses have a foghorn attached? Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know about all of them, but
This one does.
It does if we want it to.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So fog rolls in nightly. Because I want it to be subtle enough that Lily can like write it all off as like it was ghost stories combined with the weather. So she can say, yeah, we had heavy fog every night. The foghorn was creepy. We locked our doors. I was terrified, but nothing actually happened. Things went bump in the night. Yeah, we have animals, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah,
and
I want
her
it
parents,
to be,
it would be like, well, we did the ritual, so we were safe.
exactly. I want it to be subtle enough that she could come back and for the first few days be like, you guys are all crazy. Like as an adult, I can tell you this is just fog, right? Stuff like that. So she can be in denial for the first little while. Okay, so fog rolls in nightly and we hear the foghorn. I love it. So creepy. We hear the foghorn. That really reminds me, I'm sure I said this last time too, but of the Silent Hill like air raid siren. When you hear the air raid siren, like having watched Silent Hill multiple times because it's one of my favorite horror movies, it's just goddamn terrifying. The air raid siren gives me chills because it signifies what's coming.
Yeah.
So I love the idea of this foghorn having a similar effect on the residents, and even for Lily being back in town for the first time, hearing that foghorn would make her feel probably like physically ill, right?
I mean, yeah, like sound can be a huge PTSD trigger.
Exactly. So. And that could definitely be one of the reasons that Lily's like, I don't know if I can go back.
Yeah.
So I love the idea of her maybe, she's like 8 o'clock, the foghorn's going to come on. I put my headphones on and blast music or whatever. I'm going to write that down as a note. Foghorn. Lily, PTSD kicks in. Let's see. Blast music in headphones. I really love this. Headphones. Okay, cool. All right, so we've got the fog, we've got the headphones, and we need like maybe noises. Like noises are freaky, and you can also kind of be like, well, that was obviously the wind, right?
Yeah. If our imaginary island is a little farther south than say Nova Scotia, I haven't been to Nova Scotia, so I don't care where it is. Situation is there. But I know like in the south, it's like there's a lot of bugs and they make a lot of noise. Like,
yeah, that's true.
So if you just have even just all the outside sounds. Or even for her, the lack of sound could be equally as scary because then every tiny thing, like the house creaks, and it's like, oh my God.
Well, there's even like the ocean actually just makes a lot of noise on its own. And I know, like, for example, where I live, the buildings are situated in a way, I hate it, but like every time there's wind, it sounds like howling, right? So like anything like that could be like, oh, it's just the wind screaming through the streets. Like that's the way it sounds because we're on a bluff or whatever, and the winds are high.
It's actually just Eden standing at the window fucking with her. Like
it's Eden just running through the streets screaming,
just banging on the walls as she goes. Night is like, kind of her time. Like no one bothers her then. No one expects anything from her then.
She can run feral through the streets.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we could say town is windy. Wind screams past the buildings. Yeah, because like literally, the first time I moved into this house, I was like, that is deeply creepy. Like, because just the apartment buildings are like a U. So they go like this. So the wind goes straight through the alley and it is like a shrieking sound.
And that's what the whole island is because it's horseshoe shaped.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So it could actually, we could even make it so that it's not like a normal wind screaming sound. Does like it's deeply chilling.
Yeah.
And she could be like, well, you know, I researched this, and yeah, it's not a normal sound, but like the way our island is shaped is what makes that sound. And be like, that's where all the panic stems from, and trying to explain this to the cult and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. U shape of island. I'm sure that we can. Sorry, go ahead.
We have a note in the plot development folder mentioning that there's the lighthouse on one side of the horseshoe and like a trench on the other. And sometimes like the feet washing up, like sometimes parts of things come out of the trench.
Oh, right. A trench in the ocean type of thing?
Yeah. Like things will go into the trench and then come out just like missing pieces.
Oh, yeah. Because we were talking about how the whales disappear into Mariana's Trench and stuff. Okay, cool. Yeah, I like that. And that's another thing she could easily be like, sort of write off, right? And be like, it's the currents, it's the tides, it's the fact that we're near like insert name of trench that is not Mariana's Trench.
Yeah, is Spooky Trench.
Yeah, Spooky Trench. Okay, now we need to make a meme or something that's like, is Spooky Trench? Because my brain immediately went to meme. Okay, unusually creepy sound. Okay, and then also stuff washes up on shore. Do we want like full-on body parts washing up on shore? Like
we could have it escalate.
Ooh, that's so creepy. Body parts, question mark? And then
I'm trying to come up with like right now I'm trying to think of what would the plot that we have boil down to so that we can like have a pitch basically.
Good question.
So right now I've got one-hit wonder author Lily last name returns to her hometown to draw book 2 inspiration from the cult that raised her. But when she arrives,
ooh, I'm like, I want to read it. Yeah, it would be something to do with
my character somehow.
Yeah, something to do with, well, likely we would have to, because it's from 2 different POVs, we might want to also have a second little thing from your character's point of view, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
She's a lot more of an unreliable narrator than mine, though.
You do like, but when she arrives, her childhood best friend turned enemy has other plans. Blah blah blah.
I think also something about the things that terrorized her in her childhood, how she's able to like explain it away type of thing, and until she can't type of thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But put in prettier words. And then at some point let's see, we had some actual plot points of like, where is it about the cult here? Oh, I have a whole other. Yeah, we had the big plot point we have so far is that she finds out the cult was protecting her all along. What did we have causing that again? How does she find that out again? Can you remember?
How does she find out that certain things were working?
That the cult was okay. Yeah, I'm trying to remember how we said she finds out that the demons are real, essentially.
I don't think we've picked anything in particular. Okay. That seems like a fairly intuitive plot point. Like, yeah, end of act 1. It's like, oh shit, like, yeah, demon killed my friend, or like something like that.
Oh, we did say something about someone being killed in front of her. Yeah, we don't. I still feel like I want to know more about Eden's motivation for doing what she's doing, terrorizing the town essentially, and that leading into confrontation with Lily. And I guess I have to figure out Lily as a person, like when she realizes, oh shit, everything from my childhood is actually real, what does she do about that? Logic says she's gonna GTFO, like I'm kicking the next boat out of here and I'm never talking about this again. I'll give the money back for the contract. I don't want anything to do with this.
Which the benefit of two POV characters is the second she realizes that is the second that Eden cuts off all exits.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
I think for Eden, there's like twofold. There's like, I was a baby, I didn't ask to be made a void creature. And kind of like you made a sacrifice, and so now you're going to get what's coming to you because like the sacrifice didn't work the way you intended. But then like a separate branch of that is like Lily abandoned me, and it's like I want to get all of the ducks in one row and deal with all of them at once.
Okay, so
there's a lot more room for developing that further.
Yeah, no, that gives me an idea of what Lily's motivation is. Like, I like the idea of Eden having kind of like a loose plan. If she's like, I'm gonna blow up the cult and I'm gonna screw up or kill Lily at the same time, and have her kind of, because we talked about her being kind of like a spider in a web, tweaking all of the strings so that she can have this grand finale that she's picturing of like, revenge sort of. It's more complicated than that, but
with Lily, it's really not. Eden just wants revenge on her.
But I think that revenge for her against Lily would be like a deeper level than just like, I'm gonna kill her. It would be like, first I'm gonna show her that demons are real and she should be afraid. Then I'm going to show her that her parents are terrible people and that the cult is evil and what they did to me. And then I'm going to take them out all at once and just stand on the rock and be like, there's no one left. Ha ha ha.
What if it's like, I'm going to like absolutely devastate her mentally. Like gonna show her that demons are real, gonna show her that her family isn't there for her, and then I'm going to put the void in her too, and she won't ever be allowed to leave me again.
Oh, that's so fucked up. I like it. That's so much better than just
there's so many more terrible things than death.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so Eden motivation, or not motivation, but plan. I'm going to be swearing so much, so if you guys are all listening, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. You're gonna have to deal with this. There will be F-bombs in the book.
No rules on the channel anymore. What even is this?
It's just a free-for-all.
These are really long videos, and
exactly,
hopefully people find them interesting. But even if they don't, we'll have a book at the end of it, so
exactly. I like the. Do you think that Eden has read the book?
Oh yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Oh yeah. Demons are real.
She's a real what?
I'm trying to write down Eden's motivations.
Okay, gotcha.
Demons are real. Prove Lily's parents suck. Take out her. Avoid. I think obviously this gets twisted because I think Lily is like she's a writer. She'll see a plot. she knows a plot when one is happening.
She
to
knows
her.
what's up.
Yeah. And then on top of that, just this idea of like, well, she's following Eden around and she has this place bugged.
And recording her
and so
oh
there's a lot of
yeah,
room for cat and mouse there.
What if Lily puts up a camera, which again is so shitty, but like,
I mean, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And let's see, Lily puts.
And I'm sure Eden would find some of them and like leave some up, but
on purpose, probably.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we have to do a scene. We have to do like a dirty scene where Eden sees the camera and is like, fine, you want a show? I'm going to give you a show.
Yeah. And I think too, like as it goes on and they're kind of developing their plans more, we had talked about an external plot of like the cult is also realizing how to kind of tap the void, like sap from a tree. And so this idea of like, they're trying to execute these different plans, you know, Lily's just trying to get a book and then get out of there. And then Eden is trying to keep Lily there forever. But as they're becoming like twisted, romantically tangled, like as they become more Killing Eve level fascinated with each other, like they don't notice as much, and so they don't necessarily notice the cult is doing all these things.
Yeah, I love that idea. We did mention, they become so obsessed with each other that they don't notice the cult is like has a better plan than they thought. Yeah. It's a more of a threat than they thought, I think is what we said last time. Like, yeah, I like that. Don't realize. And I really want to, like, we establish, I think pretty early on that Lily is not a good person, because she's using her friends and family. She's abandoned them and now she's back. She doesn't care about anyone's feelings. She just wants money. But I want to make it obvious that she's more deeply twisted than you thought as the reader, you know what I mean? So I think we talked about a constant shifting, power dynamic. And so I can't remember what we said, but I feel like we talked about a moment where Lily could pull things back. And because Eden is being like, maybe we shouldn't, or like we could just leave. And she's like, no, burn it all down.
Like that during like the Dark Knight or something.
Yeah.
Like, what if we
did? And I like the idea, but I also want to build up to something that like a shift in her character like that. So like, I want little ones like that so that maybe she surprises Eden in certain ways. You're like, oh, I didn't know you were that twisted.
Which would be like surprising but impressive. I think maybe as the reader, when you meet Lily, you think like, oh, writer looking for an idea. And then like as things ramp up, you can be like, oh, she's willing to do anything to get this idea. Like,
yeah. Okay, I like that.
And not realizing maybe how much she put into the book at first. Like maybe we build on the knowledge of how much she put into her first book. And so you just know it was bad, and then you kind of lead up.
I just had a thought. It reminds me a bit of My Heart is a Chainsaw, how she's like, this is the final girl. This is how the plot goes. What if Lily is like, this is unfolding as we go. I'm taking notes as we go. I need to have some kind of climax. So the things she's doing in response to what Eden is doing is like, yeah, we're at the 3-act structure now. I need it to go here. So if I stab this guy, we have a better book than if I don't.
Yeah,
And particularly if they're at the climax and she's like, recognizes it for what it is. This is the climax of my book I'm about to write. And Eden, pulls back and is like, well, we don't have to kill him. We can leave. She's like, no, that's not a good book. Burn it all down and then we leave.
Yeah.
Right. That's my climax. Right.
And maybe, so we talked about like, she's coming for this thing, but also there is a slight element of like Eden has lured her there. So maybe in Lily's mind, the inciting incident is like Eden writes a letter to her. Like Eden has somehow found her and has written her a letter and is like, things are bad. Like something's happening to your parents, or like, oh, we need help, or like, I just want to talk. Can you please come? Like something that just sounds very like meek and like pitiful and like, oh, things are so bad on our little island. But like really she can see like it's been 3 years. There's no new book, like no new announcement.
So so I like the idea of Eden reading the book. Maybe she has a copy of the book, but she won't admit it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And definitely keeping tabs on Lily, like not almost obsessively. Definitely obsessively. Like I really like the idea of her. Yeah. Like, and maybe Eden, has one of those like crazy fan shrine type of thing. Mm-hmm. And Lily finds that at some point, and instead of being freaked out is like, all right,
you have my character arc developed better than I could have dreamed.
Yeah. Instead of freaking out, she's like, oh my God, this fits in perfectly with my notes.
And that's when they make out.
Oh my God, that would be so good. Particularly like Lily's so self-centered that she's like, nothing turns me on more than the fact that you're completely obsessed with me and have a shrine to me.
Yes.
Such a fucked up relationship.
Yes.
What a makeout scene in the middle of a like Criminal Minds type of like shrine wall thing.
Okay. In our plot development document, I have page breaked. I put in a page break because I think the logical next step now, I think we've got a lot of things, and maybe the next step for the next time we meet like this would be to start actually looking at plot structure and like what's act 1 gonna look like.
Okay.
Cool. And so I added a thing that's scene ideas. I don't know if you do this, but I like having like,
I do, yeah.
As I'm developing it, like, oh, like, it would be cool as a scene of like,
I can picture this happening. Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. I love it. And something we can do maybe in the document is going in and being like, how about this for a structure? What do we think of this? Like, sort of, because I think we have a lot already. Like it feels like my brain is usually scattered, and it feels scattered a little bit, but I do feel like we have enough of the building blocks.
Has a faint lighthouse shape.
Yeah, exactly.
I think maybe next time we meet too, since we'll be like developing it, actual like plot points. Sorry, my chair's squeaking so much.
Mine does that all the
time. We could like screen share a plotter file or something, so that you can see us like placing things.
That's an awesome idea. We definitely should do that, because that would give people watching like an idea of
something to look at other than our faces.
As amazing as our faces are.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I really am excited. It's really like Lily and Eden are starting to like have to feel a little bit more real to me. Which is very exciting. I feel like Lily is very like self-involved, which I feel like is a writer trait. Like, of course I'm going to Google myself, but but I really love the fact that it's such a horror thing that we're finding somebody is stalking you and having a shrine to you. Like a normal person would be scared, but she's like, I'm so flattered, let's make out. Like
it's like Misery if the author was like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to
me. Yes. Join me in bed and like stop. Ew, I grossed myself out. Oh, why did I do that?
So fucked up.
So screwed up. Okay, cool. What were we saying before we got sidetracked with the makeout scene? We were talking about, because I feel like I was following a thread.
Oh, this
Oh,
idea
yeah.
of her being obsessed with like, oh, this is a plot.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I was comparing it a little bit to My Heart is a Chainsaw, where it's like, this is how it's supposed to go. This will make the best book. So that's an excellent motivation. Actually, it reminds me a little bit too of what's the one, the Dark Academia one, where
Lesson in Vengeance.
yes, where the author's like, I will do anything for my book.
It makes me think a little bit too. There's like this one line, I don't even know if you still have it, in Dark Forest, in like the first chapter that you gave us in writing group, where she like sees this body in the forest and she starts taking pictures of it and she thinks to herself like, oh, perspective, good. Like this is, yes, this is a good photo. Like that sort of vibe.
Yeah, which is really unhinged. Like I really love the idea that she's like that deeply twisted that like everything is a story to her, including murder and demons and like, and it's also very motivated. I want her to be definitely motivated by greed and like the drive for fame. Like she had that taste with the first book and being on talk shows and stuff, and she had her life so together, and now 2 years have passed, she's got this contract and she's desperate to go back to where she was. So desperate she will go to this island. Oh, that's what I was going to ask you about. You want Eden, you think, to write her a letter.
Just like a, would you ever consider coming back? Things are happening that might seem like a plot from Lily's point of view.
I wonder though if Eden would act really wounded about being featured in her book, because that's how that's how Lily would expect her to be. Right, like of course I have to go back and all these people are so offended I'm so famous and they're gonna hate me. So I feel like Eden would probably put on the show of being very offended that you mind what happened to us. She's not offended. The least you could do is come back and maybe she says your father's doing poorly, or something along those lines of like guilting her into like, look, such and such is your father's doing poorly,
or your friend or something, like one of your other old friends.
Maybe something to do with the book. Like, just so you know, when the book came out, he took it really badly and his health declined, and like now the least you could do is come and say goodbye or something. Something really guilt.
And so she would obviously be clued in immediately, which like Eden wouldn't care about when she gets there and her dad's fine.
Well, I kind of like the idea of maybe she's already thinking of going back to the island.
Exactly.
So do we want it to be like 100% Eden is moving all of the things into place?
I think it needs to be both of them a little bit. Like I think that Lily was maybe thinking already about going back, and maybe Eden saw an interview where someone asked, would you ever go back? And she was like,
my God, that's
I don't know, maybe. And so Eden is like,
that's so good,
thinking about it.
So does Eden
nudge her?
Oh, I love that. Yes. And things start to like, the plan starts to form. Okay. Lily already thinking of going back. I like the idea too. Does Eden pretend that she doesn't follow Lily's career? Okay. Already thinking of going back. So I like the idea of, if she's denying that, at some point, like accidentally quoting something she said in that interview or something, and having Lily be like, okay, has she been keeping tabs on me? Was her letter a coincidence? And having that like growing sense of unease, like there's more going on maybe than I thought, type thing, And obviously that would even confirm to her too that like Eden's like sunshine and rainbow, like mild manneredness is like total bullshit. She already kind of suspects that, but it's like now she's like, no, she's just manipulated me like massively. Okay, I like that. Okay, so Eden saw interview.
I think you were mentioning this idea of her being like kind of motivated by the money and like the accolades and stuff that she got with the first novel. I think that could be a potentially interesting like foil, like if she sees this as like, this is what I want, this is like my calling, like this is what I'm meant to do. As compared to like Eden, who is the cult version of this was what I was called to do.
Especially if she's kind of like a literary author, like maybe it was maybe it was fiction with a sprinkle of, this really happened, I've just changed all the names and stuff. And she was like a, literary fiction sensation. She's at all the book clubs, she's on Oprah's list of 10 books you must read before you die, blah, blah, blah. So I imagine her, if she's one of those types of authors, her being like, A, totally up her own ass, and B, like this is a holy calling, sort of like that. This is her religion now. Like she's replaced religion. Right?
That I love that when you're like analyzing someone who's left a cult or a high demand religion, that idea of like, did you replace it with something else and not realize it? And I also think with her doing increasingly erratic things on the island, it's kind of like, oh, well, the book was autobiographical. And if anyone had done any level of Googling, they could have known that. And they didn't care about the shitty things that I wrote in the first one. So they're not going to care if I actually did any of this. Like, it's just going to make a good book.
Yeah. I think initially she would definitely be, even in just the aspect of like making sure the reader doesn't immediately catch on to the fact that Lily is horrible. She would be making excuses to herself, like, because that is kind of the coward's way too, right? Is to make excuses to yourself, lie to yourself. So she would be saying like, this was how I processed my trauma, and like nobody's confronting me about it directly, so they must have watched the interviews, and they would have said something now if they were mad, or it's fine that I do this, like you were saying. So she's kind of in like denial about how horrible all the things she said in her book were.
Because like it is a cult, and like cults do terrible things, but people can also do terrible things, but like the cult is the obvious, and they are a villain, but it's like, oh, two like really messed up people and a cult.
But I like the idea too of like and Lily initially seeming the most horrible because she took her trauma, sure, but her trauma was like intrinsically linked with Eden's trauma.
For sure.
And she left Eden on the island and then wrote about Eden and profited off of Eden's pain and trauma, right? So initially from like the get-go, the reader is going to be like, oh, Lily's a bitch. Like, obviously Eden is in the right for being choked at her, right?
And I want to think about this, think about next week, the like betrayal more, like really suss out what all of the layers of the betrayal were, because especially if there's like elements that would have been really, really personal to Eden.
Something that, because she's obsessed with Lily on a number of different levels. Like there was obviously like a strong relationship between them. They were BFFs. They had these like intense emotional, they were baby gays together, essentially. Intense connection that they didn't really realize what it was as they're coming in, into themselves. I'm imagining them being like insanely close when they were early teens, late teens, or maybe all through the teens.
Yeah, all teens.
That's sort of when you
Island
start
is
figuring out.
small, so
Yeah, exactly. And this is when you start figuring out feelings and who you're attracted to and stuff. And then having Eden be super obsessed with Lily from kind of like afar, and having, tracking her career, all the money she's made, maybe she's dating lots of other women, and so Eden would be like increasingly obsessed with her and jealous and angry, and also like, I'm bringing her back and I'm going to make sure she never leaves again.
Yeah.
That's such a good motivation, like a number of levels of motivation.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I really like that. I think our characters are like starting to make sense.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that definitely, like, there's a number of layers to the betrayal for both of them.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like, because I feel like maybe in spite of the fact that Eden was the one that was like really affected, like they basically tried to sacrifice her, Lily probably like didn't deal with the psychological stuff in the cult. Like she dealt with a lot worse than Eden did, I'm picturing, which is why she was like, I was afraid and I ran away and I left you. Right. Yeah. And then maybe because I still like right now, Lily just looks shitty. And I don't know what Eden would have told the cult that would have.
I want to think about it a little more.
Yeah.
I don't know if she necessarily needs to rat Lily out, but if there's something like if she tries to do something that like really scares Lily or something.
Okay. Yeah, because if she knows Lily is like terrified of the demons,
and also as a young teen knows that, well, if you're with me, the demons won't hurt you.
Right.
Then she could like really freak her out. And it would be something that would take years to explain away.
So maybe something about Eden's voidness that you think would be.
Yeah, maybe something like that. And then we add a layer of like the cult is also there doing something.
Right. Okay.
I'll need to think about it more.
Yeah. Because right now Lily seems like the shitty one, which she is as well. But she needs to have a reason to be pissed, basically.
Yeah. I think when they were both kids, Eden was a lot more like Lily. Like, oh, we're outcasts together sort of thing. Which would be a stark contrast when you get back. And it's like, who is this?
I love that. I'm going to put which would be another betrayal too. Like Lily would feel super betrayed.
Yeah.
That like we were rebels together. We knew all of this was bullshit. And now you're like the saint of the cult. What the hell?
Yeah, you scared the pants off of me. And then that same night, the cult offered to let you be more of a community member. And you were fine with that. And she's like, I was not, but you left.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I really like the idea of, because she's terrified of demons and like maybe slowly, I don't know if she maybe slowly stops believing in them and stops believing in the cult. And then as they're, and Eden's the same way. And maybe, Lily has it in her head that like, it's us against them and we're going to get away together. And this is us, we're going to go to the mainland and we're going to get an apartment. And she has all these plans.
Yeah.
And, thinks of Eden as kind of like her savior, like, not savior, safety line. Like,
like I don't have to do this by myself.
I don't have to do this by myself. Yeah, it's scary. And then, so something that Eden does before they leave.
Yeah.
So
then it's like the you abandoned me goes both ways.
Yeah, exactly. Like she doesn't show up to the meeting spot, but I think she's done something just before that to make Lily think she didn't show up.
Maybe Eden finds out that some of the miracles are being faked. And or Lily did I say Lily or did I say Eden? Lily finds out that some of the miracles are fake, and she's like, all of this is fake. And
Right.
Eden like knows it's not all fake because she's a void creature. And there's some element of like the community realizes Eden is spinning out of control and you don't have much of a cult without your light keeper or whatever. And so they like offer her a more involved spot, and they offer it like at twilight at the same time they're supposed to be leaving, and she's like, just wait for me, like I just want to talk to them, which would be like such a betrayal to Lily. Like, why would you want to talk to them?
Right.
And she's like, just wait, I just want to talk to them. And Lily's like, no, I'm gone. You come at that time or I go alone.
Yeah. And I definitely like, this is something they would fight about, definitely.
Yeah. Like, you come at that time or I go alone, but please don't make me go alone.
Yeah.
Like,
don't make me do this alone.
Yeah.
Why do you even need to talk to them?
Exactly.
Like, we know it's fake now. You saw that with your own eyes that it was faked. So why are you still attached to them, type of thing?
Yeah.
I still want there to be, I think, another layer.
Yeah.
That
for sure.
Lily's, way more pissed than if it would just be that. So
yeah. Let's think about it some more. I do have to get going, but
yeah, fair.
Yes.
Okay, cool. That will be our homework, is thinking about the layers of betrayal.
Layers of betrayal. And then if you have any like scene ideas, particularly for like what would be the act 1 or whatever. Yeah. Take notes of those.
Plot acts. Layers of betrayal.
Yeah, if you're still watching this after, how long has it been? Over an hour. Thank you so much. I hope this is enjoyable for people. We're having a really fun time.
A blast.
Yeah, this is great fun. So be sure to like and subscribe if you like this and want to more regularly see this content when it is uploaded. And yeah, we will be back next time with some more like point by point plotting, now that we have kind of all of the broad strokes of everything. So yeah.
Sounds good.
All right, did you have something you wanted to add?
I was gonna say and maybe do it in Plotter if we want to do it.
Yeah.
So you guys
Plotter.
So you guys can see on the screen as we're moving acts around and all that good stuff.
For sure.
So, awesome.
All right, we'll see you all next time.
Bye.